Hello, my darlings. This is a very serious, terrifying, and terrible story that I wanted to share tonight for our dear friends Lisa and Jeff, who have themselves known the dangers, the mysteries, the terrors of Jacumba. You see, many times the interns and I have packed our things into the HMS Darjeeling Express, preparing for travels from here in the deepest deserts of Arizona, off to the roads to make our way to the sea, where we will see our friends in the far-off climes of San Diego. But as we traverse these dangerous deserts, yes, the intern supreme who is here with us now can tell you about the terrors of Jacumba, for as we travel, very often in the deepest, darkest part of the night, we find ourselves in the mountains, in the passes, surrounded by mysterious rock formations, where pirates of all variety could hide themselves. Indeed, we have on occasion been attacked by pirates in these passes who steal our lemons. They claim to be the lemon pirates, but we've heard from the airship Citronia that this is basest rumor and could not possibly be true. No, so these mysterious pirates who have stolen our lemons on occasion, and once they made off with my finest tea strainer, which I prefer to use in battle. It is lucky and has felled many an opponent, but alas, I must ransom it back from these vile fiends, these mysterious masked lemon-thieving pirates in the pass to Jacumba. Yes, on the way to Jacumba, we are often surrounded not only by these mysterious rocks, but by thick fog, dense, impenetrable. It blankets the earth around us. It masks the terrain. It muffles every voice. Even the tea kettles become hard to hear in the mist near Jacumba. What are we to do? We must be ever on the lookout. We must rely on the fierce protection of Bernard, he who is now left with one foot after the most recent tragedy in the tea laboratory. Yes, Bernard, who has been our lookout for these many months of his time as an intern, has survived several trips through the pass to Jacumba. But on this last trip, Bernard, dear Bernard, found himself overwhelmed by the rains, by the mist, by the terrible, terrible weather that was rolling into the pass. He feared the worst and, in a fit, fainted to the deck of the HMS Darjeeling Express. We were, of course, all very distressed for Bernard, but a little bit more worried about losing our lookout to a fainting spell brought on by the mists of Jacumba. There was nothing for it. We had to ask dear Godzilla to use his special skills, his perceptions, to look into the mist, to see forward for us what horrors might be waiting in the mist if we were perhaps flying into some trap, some ambush by the faceless pirates who had stolen my lucky tea strainer. Perhaps there was some other unforeseen menace waiting in the mist on the way to Jacumba. The miles stretched before us. It was a long and dangerous, perilous trip through the passes, so narrow, so winding, shrouded as it was in mist. We could barely see, even 50 yards in front of the prow of our ship. No, the mist that blanketed everything could indeed hide our destruction on the way to Jacumba. Fortunately, the intern supreme had some plan, some plot up his sleeve. He pulled out his own latest invention from the laboratory, a special spyglass that he had devised especially for looking through steamy tea rooms, discerning any incursions upon our teapots, to make certain that there was no, indeed, I must speak it, no shenanigans enacted by Prussians or other sneaky sorts who like to investigate parts and enact terrible plots without our knowing it, which is how sneaking is supposed to work. But we like to cut the sneaking off, especially around teapots, because we are very attached to most of them, and we want them to be in one piece, of course, for the tea dueling and for afternoon tea, which is very difficult without teapots. And so, the intern supreme, being a very clever fellow, had developed this spyglass, which he was certain could also pierce through the mists on the way to Jacumba. As he pulled out his spyglass, we all huddled behind him, hopeful. We had slowed the speed and course of our airship. We heard but muffled sounds of skittering rock, the occasional cry in the distance. Was it a bird of prey, or was it something worse? Were these pirates waiting for us, or were they some mad scientists bent on acquiring our special, latest gunpowder green tea? We had created this latest batch specifically for our travails in Santiago at the Duel of Dusk. But perhaps these mad scientists had heard some news of it and were here planning to take it from under us, planning to use it for their own ends. And so we armed ourselves in the only way we knew how, with explosive teacups, with our own small tea sachets of green tea, primed and ready for such occasions. Godzilla placed himself at the bow of our ship, and the intern supreme looked out quietly into the mist. "Shh!" he cried softly, which is good, because he was trying to be mysterious and not draw attention to us. Crying loudly would have been very terrible at that juncture. So he was quiet as he called to us, "Shh!" We all stilled, waiting for him to say something more. He turned around. He said, "I've seen it! I've seen the sign! To Jacumba! We are nearing it. We're almost there. At the foot of the mountain, there is some sort of caravan. At the base, waiting outside the town of Jacumba." We were all nervous, practically sitting on tea leaves with terror and anxiety. We floated silently through the mist on the way to Jacumba, and then it was like some strange miracle. The mist parted, a ray of sun came through the clouds, rain stopped suddenly, and there before us was the sign to Jacumba. And just as we neared that sign, just as we came down the bend, through the pass, cutting through the mist, just as we approached, to Jacumba, just as Cake began to bite my ankles in the midst of the tale of Jacumba. Cake, that was very unkind. We saw it. Another sign. Behind the sign to Jacumba, a sign that proclaimed Jacumba was the home of hot springs. That was a great deal less terrifying than we imagined existing in Jacumba. In fact, hot springs sounded relaxing, welcoming even, like a place we might stop for tea. And so, under the suggestion of the Intern Supreme, we did the only sensible thing. We finally stopped in Jacumba. We rode forward in our airship. We found one lone tower at which we could tie our ship and descend to the land of Jacumba. We were curious. Things were quiet. The townsfolk seemed to be asleep. It was, of course, just dawn, so perhaps not entirely surprising that rational folks would still be in bed. But here we were, in Jacumba, safe, in one piece, our airship still under our control, our tea supplies not yet robbed from us. And as we descended into the town streets of Jacumba, we saw them coming towards us, walking through the town. Mysterious strangers, shrouded in dark coats, scarves draped around their necks, hats tilted at a precarious angle upon their crowns. They seemed to be stumbling, weaving, and singing sea shanties. What madness had we discovered in Jacumba? What strange creatures were these sea shanty singing strangers on the streets of Jacumba? We approached, they approached. We paused. I gripped my tea sachet in my hand, prepared, I say, to unleash the dangers and doom of the gunpowder green at any moment. And as these strangers came nearer, they burst into full-throated song, welcoming us, not to Jacumba, as we always thought, but Jacumba, Hot Springs, a delightful village where people like to relax and drink wine to the wee hours of the morning. It was much less terrifying than expected. They invited us to breakfast. We offered them kippers. They preferred huevos rancheros, which was admittedly quite delightful, and so was the morning mimosa they offered us. The intern, of course, provided tea, and Bernard, at last sensible, was delighted to find himself propped at a table with warm eggs, bread, tomatoes, and champagne. It was a delightful end to a terrifying encounter, and when we were done having breakfast with these new friends, we discovered that while they were mad scientists, they had no desire to steal our tea and in fact were stranded in Jacumba and wished to join us on our journey to San Diego. The rest, of course, will have to wait for another time. Thank you for joining us for this tale of terror in Jacumba.